and Random Musings. I'm your host, Andy Noyes. This morning I was reading this article. I thought I would go over some of it on Outside Magazine. It's because what makes a pro runner valuable to a brand? And this is often a discussion in the ultra world, especially because so many people are interested in making running their profession. But does it matter whether you're fast or do you have a great social media presence? And this was talking more about marathoners, but it definitely would be the case with ultra running too. And so they were talking about, to start off the article the other day, they had the British Olympic trials, and Chris Thompson won, and he was just a few weeks shy of his 40th birthday. And everybody was rooting for him. He came from behind at the end there in the last few miles, pulled off the win. And he's sponsored by On Running, which is a shoe company also. But like many of the people who were running in the Olympic trials a year ago for the United States back on Leap Day, a lot of them were wearing Nikes, and so was he, and they blacked him out. In fact, Nike, the race weekend, gave a lot of the athletes the newest, latest, gave all the athletes a pair of their newest, latest shoes. So then you have an issue of, okay, his sponsor said, okay, you can wear the Nike shoes because they're just so much better. They blacked him out. And then, of course, he wins the race wearing shoes that his company isn't, made, and he's crossing the line with a Nike banner on this finish line. So one of the things in the article was Noah Drody, who's a U.S. marathoner, who tweeted a photo of Thompson breaking the swisher door tape at the trials, in which dramatic vaporfly silhouette is clearly visible. Which company is getting more value here, On or Nike? And that's definitely a case. And I often talk to runners who are interested in getting sponsorships deals and whatnot, and it's kind of like, well, what value do you bring to the to the sponsor? Why are they going to do it? Because they're not just doing it for charity. They want to see some results. And, shoe companies want to put shoes on feet, clothing companies clothing, and type of things like that. So basically, they talk about in the article that Drody, he's been around for a while. He's a 30-year-old athlete now, and he runs for Saucony, and he ran in that marathon project back in December, and he went 2:09:09, which makes him the 10th fastest marathoner of all time. He was running in the Saucony shoe, which kind of showed everybody that, hey, this shoe's fast too. But at the end of 2020, they dropped him. And you're thinking, wow, you're the 10th fastest American all time. In fact, he's famous for when he crossed the line, he was also puking, and so he now on his social media accounts has aspiring pro runner. And so you're thinking, wow, if you're that fast and you're getting a pro contract, what do you need to do? And it says basically, the fact remains that elite runners who are fortunate enough to get one, a shoe contract is the most dependable way to make a living as a pro. But while in previous eras, an athlete's value might be based primarily on podium finishes and qualification for marquee events like the Olympics, the brave new world of influencer marketing and social media has added another dimension. So to what degree have Instagram and Twitter upended the traditional approach for brands that are trying to figure out which athlete to sponsor? And I think it's pretty much, it is it, because I sometimes will put in applications for little ambassadorships and things like that, and they're always asking what accounts do you have, how many followers do you have, and types of thing like that. So the guy from Brooks, marketing director Matt Weiss, said that at his company, at least, performance is still the most important thing when choosing elite athletes. But he also admitted that they'd much rather have, if a 21-year-old and a 28-year-old are running the same times, they're going to go with the youngster. And that makes sense. And you're going to invest it. You want to have a long-term career out of it. And it says, that they've got, they want to have, performance be key. But, if you've worked at a shoe store or hung out at a shoe store, I've noticed that, very rarely do people come in. My friend owns Soul Sports. Very rarely do people come in saying, I want this shoe because some fast guy is running in it. They pretty much say, I want this shoe because someone I know who's like me uses the shoe. I know myself, I started wearing Hokas, and I would tell people about how I liked them, and people were buying them. And same thing with Ultras when I switched to them. My hike club was all in boots years ago, and now almost all of them are wearing trail running shoes. And a lot of reason was because I was wearing and exhorting the benefits of them. And so I think that's kind of the way it is. And so the article continues on. I talked to Mev Kofletsky's brother, who's a an elite athletes coach, and he basically saying the same thing, that he's more, instead of like Brooks, that he's represents several elite runners that are Instagram savvy individuals like Olympic trials champion Alphine Tillamook and Alex Pappas. And he, looks at, the Northern Arizona elite team who is definitely on social media and bringing value to their companies. And he says things are changing so quickly that sometimes the traditional methods of evaluation are not always keeping pace, says Kafletsky. His vision is that when done right, a robust social media presence not only increases exposure for a brand, but also amplifies race performance, especially when an athlete has charisma to match their athletic talent. For him, Tillamook, in her breakthrough race in Olympic trials, was a perfect example. As Kafletsky put it, she had the personality to really sustain the popularity that comes with getting to the next level. And she is very engaging on Instagram. She makes the beanies. She was selling the beanies, and people love that. And then I remember this summer, she kind of disappeared, and then boom, turned out she was pregnant, and she had, I believe, a son just recently. So that was pretty fun to see that. And of course, Drudy himself is pretty well known. They often, he in the 2016 Olympic trials, he ran in the 10K, and they commented on the fact that he looked like a Metallica roadie amongst the Clean Living Jocks. And Runners World headline after a race in which Drudy finished last: "Meet the mustached beer drinking hero who crashed the trials at 10K." Since then, however, Drudy has produced the goods on the performance end. First with a 61-minute half marathon, and most recently his top 10 all-time marathon. And of course, his agent is Josh Cox, so good thing he's got him. Josh is a good agent. He is former record holder in the 50K, and in fact, a local kid up here in California, up in Fresno, he ran and broke that record. I'm blanking on CJ Albertson from Buchanan. In fact, he just did a FK attempt at the Grand Canyon. Mount the Grand Canyon was a little hard. So Drudy looks like, thankfully, he is into looking at some brands or looking at him. I think what it happens is that basically runners need to look beyond shoe companies to sponsor them. The shoe companies definitely have too much power in the running business, and you need to like expand. There's like some clothing lines I think are much better opportunity, like Tracksmith and Oakley. And I think it's better if you're an athlete to kind of sign with them, and then you can pick and choose the footwear you want to wear depending on what you're doing. Especially like in road racing, the shoes are definitely working, and now it's even in track. If you listen to Let's Run, there are definitely issues with all of that. So, bottom line is, running and thinking you're going to make a career out of it, it's definitely a tough road to hoe. It seems like the people who are successful are embracing social media. Sure, you can be, an amazing superstar runner like Galen Rupp, and he's getting paid, and he wasn't doing much when he was with Salazar and stuff. But now that he's kind of on his own, training with, again, the Northern Arizona coach, he's now much more media presence. And I think that's what people are looking for in this day and age. I mean, you see it in all the other sports, the big major sports, basketball, football, soccer, and it's just something that if you don't want to do, well, you can still race and compete, but don't expect sponsors to sponsor you because they want to get something out of it. And I think there's lots of opportunities out there, and it just depends on how you want to work for it. And it's kind of comparable. I owned a record store for 20 years, and I had tons of people coming in all the time. They wanted to be a professional musician, and I was like, well, you can be a great guitar player or a great musician, but you've got to work hard and you've got to get lucky and make breaks. And it's kind of the same thing with running. I remember years ago, the company, I think it was Competitor Magazine, who's now Podium Magazine, they sponsored rock and roll races, and they used to bring in all the fast guys, especially a lot of the East Africans, and they'd pay their way and bring them in. And I remember a few years ago, they decided to stop bringing those guys in because, they're great guys, but they're basically great guys and women, but they come in, win the race, and that was all they were concerned about, and they weren't really, meet and greeting and all that kind of thing. And so they decided to put their money into more promoting the sport. And I tell people all the time, you've got to get, the way to grow the sport of running and bottom line increase, the elite runners, the people who are breaking records and stuff, is you got to get more people who look like me in the sport. You need to make walking divisions in the races, so that people feel comfortable. Don't tell people you got a 4 hour cutoff and then, at 3.5 hours you start taking down the finish line and that stuff. It's got to be reasonable, but make it so that you're inclusive and accepting. I think another thing that we really need to start is weight divisions in racing. I know I'm the big guy saying you need weight divisions, but you have weight divisions in boxing and wrestling and stuff, which is only fair, and because you don't want to get people killed. But you have weight divisions in weightlifting, so a 100-pound guy is not going against a 200-pound guy. Well, I think if we had weight divisions running, it would make it a much bigger sport, and you could compete against people your size. And it's not just big guys like me, but guys who are 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, and six-pack abs. They can't run a sub 3 hour marathon. I've never seen one do it, but they could compete against each other, and it would just bring in more people and more competition in the sport. And ultimately, you grow the sport, you make the pie bigger, you're going to have more money, and then this will kind of solve the problem of professional runners, the really elite fast guys, getting paid more, because if you've got a bigger base, you'll definitely have more money in there. So it's my take on what makes a pro runner valuable to a brand, and it's not just the performance on the track roads. It's all a package all around. So that's about it for today. Stay healthy and be boring.